Okay, I'm tying up an extended body CDC kind of hybrid jig streamer Stonefly. And it worked great for me right out of the gate. So figured I would tie him up on the video. And yeah, I'm already thinking about adding them to the site, but wanted to play around with some more colors before I choose anything concrete. This is probably the best so far, but then again, this brown olive cinnamon coloration, it's been doing great in just about everything I've tied with it. Starting like a year ago when I first used the Cinnamon Microflash UV dubbing from Fulling Mill on basically a cider caddis. Like, it's just big, gaudy, 2 ciders on it, just more like an indicator caddis. But it got ate like crazy, and that was about 10 months ago, because this was like the dead of winter when it was doing so well, which was even more surprising. So, first step is creating the extended body. And so what I'm going to do is tie it and then talk. So since I'm only needing a tail, basically the hook shank and length, I'm not going to tie a long loop. This is actually probably longer than I need, but there's got to be a balance between like workability and excess. So also worth noting, I did a double loop. So I took the thread around my index finger once, over the hook shank, and back over my index one more time before I tied it all off. And it's just, ever since I started doing that, I almost never break dubbing loops. And I don't know if it's just I'm heavy-handed with the dubbing twister or what, but it was not a rare occurrence when I was using just single loops. And honestly, when I do break double dubbing loops, it's during this, not this fly, but much larger versions of this fly. So I'm going to start by just adding a wad of CDC dubbing I made up. It's mostly the 3 main ingredients. There is a ton of just extras because it's started with an old batch in the first place of mystery dubbing. And I mainly used Cinnamon Cdc dubbing, like just pure CDC fibers, Brown Olive Cdc fibers, and Cinnamon Microflash UV dub. And the more I fish it, the more I think it's just getting taken as crayfish, because it's got that dirty olive look. And then, well, obviously not the caddis, but the jig streamers I've tied in it have almost always also had an orange. Hey, this is one of the first ones I tied complete with weeds and river bottom. But as you can see, I added the as you can see, I added the orange eyes, which there were plural eyes when I first added them. And so it's just one of those color combos I've taken to, because you know how it is. When a fly works right out of the gate, it has to be like that, because it was a magic combo. No other factor could have produced results like that. Therefore, I emulate that to a T and wonder why it doesn't work for the rest of my life. Your mileage may vary. So, I've gotten the loop twisted up, and since I was talking, I'm going to make sure I got it twisted up enough, because you do want a lot of tension. Basically, I want to spin the dubbing loop until it almost comes to a stop right after I spin it. And then I'm going to pinch the loop. I'm going to pinch the loop under the hook shank and above the dubbing twister to take that stress off, that stress point. And then I'm just going to stretch it, and that's just going to spread out the tension more evenly throughout the loop instead of it being condensed down here. So now that I've got the loop under the amount of tension that I want, I'm going to go ahead and take the naked half of the dubbing loop and coat it in super glue. Then I'm going to take my whip finisher or any hook, like anything that can hook the loop, because this is just temporary. I'm basically just going to hook it right under the dubbing, which allows me to fold over the loop and tie off all that excess. And this is solely to lock in that tension right now. There's really no method to my wraps. So now that it is tied off, I'm going to put the dubbing loop twister back in and let it spin, and then give it some encouragement. And so I want it to spin up past its natural resting point, and before I allow it to unspin, I'm going to just brush it. Basically, I'm just tangling these fibers up. And the last thing I'll do to kind of just lock it in, which all this is doing is giving the fibers a little bit more of a bite, because naturally the looser the loop is, the less force that is pinching in these fibers. And yes, you've got super glue, but it's just one extra measure to make sure all those materials stay where they're supposed to. But the last thing I'll do is just stretch out that loop one more time, and that's just going to, I just do that long enough to feel like the glue is set, and I take the loop out, and I mean, you see it doesn't really spin much. So this tail was a little longer than I like. In fact, I'm just going to eat up some of it. Not literally. I'm sure California would say I have cancer. Ha, joke's on them. Never mind. That was going to be one of the jokes that inevitably ends up in me re-recording this for the 4th time. Because I lack a filter. Okay. So, next step, I'm just going to do a body resembling the tail. So I'm just, on this one, I keep it simple and just split my thread, but you could just as easily do another dubbing loop without cording it up onto itself like you did the tail, or like I did the tail, and just wrap it up the body. I was about to say splitting my thread is second nature, but you wouldn't think so from watching this. I gotta turn my light down, or else my hands are just one giant reflecting mess, and that always throws me off. Plus my white paper just fell off my phone, and my astigmatism is not very happy that I've got a cluttered background. I think I might just edit all that out, make it look like I got it on the first try. Okay, now that my thread is split, and surprisingly still in one piece, I'm just going to add another pinch of dubbing. And I've been a little heavy-handed with the dubbing. I've only tied one other one this evening, and typically that is not how I like to do these videos. But it was either this or not at all, and I really like this fly. So I just added a little glue. I would not add the glue if I was using a dubbing loop, but since doing split thread, your thread becomes quite fragile once it's corded up. I just do that to make sure it doesn't snap on the first fish it encounters. I'm going to uncord my thread, and before I do the last step of adding rubber legs, I'm going to dig out my dubbing brush from the trash box that it just knocked it or fell into. Okay, and peel away the 1,500 yards of thread, and I'm just going to rough it up. And I just do this because I'd rather not go over the rubber legs with this heavy-duty pick or brush, and this will make much shorter work of picking it out with a bodkin. So now I'm just going to add 2 legs on each side up top. And I just get them generally where I want them, because now, lastly, I'm going to add, I feel like I just said lastly, but for realsies lastly, I'm just going to put on a bit of the straight up Cinnamon Microflash, and I'll use this to kind of finalize the replacement of the legs. This one's just got a curl that is not being cool. Just be cool, man. Nah. You are not going to be cool. So, yeah. That's not what I wanted. In fact, the whip finish wasn't what I wanted, period. So, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. Anytime I do a fly that has this much material up behind the bead, where it's going to be difficult to really sink my thread down for that initial whip finish, I'd try to glue it or use resin. Because if not, the bulk of the thread is now exposed, and you know, it kind of holds the fly together, so it's a good idea to lock it in. And just trim the legs. I think that sucker got some glue on it, and that's why it's being a nerd. I'm using my bad scissors because I'm tying some other much rougher patterns, and if I have my good scissors anywhere near me, I will just instinctively pick them up. So I don't usually struggle through that many snips. But yeah, picture that leg. Oh, there you go. Now he's just kind of resting his arm on the back side of his head. That's more natural. That's what stoneflies do. But yeah, I really like this pattern. Fish it like a jig streamer. I did especially well with it dropping it under a dry, and yeah, they liked it. I like it. I hope you liked it. And now you can see all the information that I used to stutter through on the next slide. But definitely look at the next slide. Don't exit out now. Goodbye.